Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. It really helps me out if you like, comment, subscribe, and if you would consider purchasing from one of my sponsors in the description. Thanks a bunch.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining me today on Petsistence's quick unboxing and review, sponsored by Petsistence Pet First Aid Kits. Remember a few weeks ago, I did a review on this Class 92 by Accurascale. Pretty nice model, very nice model actually, but I didn't have a consist to run with it. But now the Mk5 coaches have come in, so I'll talk about those. The ordering options were a little bit confusing, particularly since I didn't know pretty much anything about this train. I was looking around trying to figure out, and it said 16 carriages make up the total consist, Sooper, and I was reading all this cool stuff about it. They break the train up into 3 different portions, and then they use different diesel locomotives to haul the sets around after they break them apart. But even with all this information in my head, when it came time to order, I just sort of didn't know what I was doing. So I ordered everything that was available to order. I went ahead and ordered it. I looked at all this, and I don't know, I might have been really tired the day I was looking at it. None of it made sense. So the best solution was just to say, screw it, get everything. And that's what I did. So, and I figured if it's too many cars, I could theoretically order 1 or more of the diesels. So I went looking for the diesels, and I looked here, I didn't find any. But then I finally found this KMS Railtech thing, and they were asking people if they would be interested in getting some of the Caledonian sleeper class 73/9s. So I filled out the form, and I said if they're going to make this Caledonian sleeper thing to let me know, but by then I'll have an idea of whether I'd rather double head or whether I would rather get one of these and break that setup. And if this is a decision that you're going to make, you can go out and find this British Class 73 in Caledonian livery just by searching for it. And it looks pretty much the same for what it's worth, except it's in Class 73 form. So I'll have to kind of scratch my head and figure out what I want to do. So I finally got it here a couple days ago, and it came in an extremely chunky, very high quality box. And I looked at this and I'm like, oh, all right, looks like it's going to have a bunch of different cars. And by then I had already forgotten what I'd ordered. Seems like I ordered these things quite a while ago. And it made even less sense to me now. So I figured I'd have to go back to Wikipedia or whatever to figure out what order to put these things in. But that's in fact not the case. It's going to get a little bit easier than that. So I tore open the box, nice foam on top. See if there's something underneath. And there are 2 tension lock couplers, and I have to admit I'm not a huge fan of these tension lock couplers, and a nice little glossy, it's a booklet, gives you a nice history of the coaches. You open it, and here we go. It shows you how to build a consist. Very good. Nice parts diagram, which could certainly come in handy. And then, whoa, wait.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No! No!
I can't believe they're using the wand. This was kind of a cool gimmick when it came out, but dip switches or DCC. Now, I don't think there's a cab car on this, so I suppose unlike that Rapido tank job, we have to try to wave the wand just to get the lights to reverse, which is really poorly thought out. Hopefully this won't be too bad, and hopefully these switches in here will be save state. In other words, every time I put this on the track, I don't have to re-wave the wand. Please let them save the state that they're in. All right, we got these little things. I guess these are some sort of deals to tell you which car you're in. I'll have to figure out how to get those in there a little bit later. And let's see, I'm not even sure where they go. Well, here it is. This is, which one is this? This is just a standard sleeper, right? It looks nice. Certainly the paint is super crisp, super detailed. Looks very nice. Looks like the hallway is made of single color plastic. Not the greatest, magnetic coupler. Yikes, they have a magnetic coupler on here. So I have magnetic couplers on another train set that I have, but it's aftermarket. It doesn't work very well. It doesn't work very well at all. Oh, there's the slot. I guess maybe that's where the little things are gonna go. Looks like they have some very nice etched metal. I guess this is going to be the air conditioner under there with separately applied fans. Very cool. And it looks like the wheels are on bearings. That's a very good idea because I have some lit coaches with wheels that aren't on bearings, and that's a fatal flaw. Look at that. So I'm pretty sure that's the air conditioner, right? Etched metal grates, you can see right through it. Very lovely. Nice undercarriage work, nice detail work in general. Very pleased, and you can't feel this, but I can. But it has a nice heft to it. And generally, cars with this kind of heft has very thick plastic walls. They sound very good when they're riding the rails. I don't have a whole lot of hope for the magnetic couplers, I have to admit. It looks like tons of hoses are already installed. Nice covers here. I think this is going to be a very pleasant model to run, and it's certainly going to be a very nice one to look at. Although, frankly, the chances of the 92 pulling all of these and those magnetic couplers staying in place are very, very small. And you know what? I think it's going to be better to show you these on the track. I could sit there and hold these up. They're very, very cool, no doubt about it. And let's see, the couplers, yeah, they go together, but they pull apart really easily. I've got, 3 more boxes of these with 4 cars in them each. So that's going to make for 18 total, right? I think my math works out on that. Wait, wasn't it supposed to be 16 cars? Oh, heck, I don't know. Let's take a little bit more of an in-depth view, and first I'll just weigh them real quick. There we go, turn it on, and we will plop her down and get the ounces. 6 ounces dead on. Very nice. So it's 169 grams for everybody else in the world. So it's pretty hefty. I don't know if there's a standard for scale cars, but they feel solid. And at this weight, they are solid. 165 grams for this club car. So, yep, 5.9 ounces.
And, we saw some of this on the unboxing, but like here, I don't know if you can really tell through the camera, but there are actually some details behind that mesh, and they're a different color. One thing I mentioned while looking through this is that these were bearinged wheels, and in fact, I'm exactly right. Look at what happens when I rotate the wheel. You can see what I think, it generally takes, they look sort of like what they're supposed to be, the disc brakes, and the small round donut thing that holds these trucks on, that holds the axles onto the truck. They don't actually move when I turn the wheel. So it looks like they're actually rolling against metal, and perhaps even they're on some sort of real bearing, which is really nice. And I noticed they ride really smoothly. The underside is pretty detailed. You can see there's some molded in parts, but there are also some separately applied parts, like you can see here with these etching plates. So I think this is great. Actually, they decided not to go Rapido's route where you have all this piping and everything. You can see that's just molded in, and it's kind of an afterthought. But when you look at it from the side, everything looks great. And to me, this is kind of the way to go if I'm going to choose detail. I'm going to do the things that people can see. If you look here, nice streamlined trucks. You can see the hydraulics actually look really, really noticeable. Nice ladder details here, nice doors. And some of this stuff is molded on, but overall, the paint is really crisp and clean. There's no flaws. Any of those kind of flakes you might see, those are just sort of dust or something, some detritus that's been sitting around my house that's gotten on there. Very nice pad printing on some of the labels and warning signs, that kind of thing. They're mostly readable, so great. Very, very good. Let's see, I don't know what this thing is here, but looks like the transformer box right next to it. So, and these things are things you're going to notice as it's going around the track. You're not going to be worried too much about what's underneath, but obviously if they cared a little bit if they put those fans in there. Take a look at the interior of the club car, and these are a simple pry and pull. You got to take the couplers off, but other than that, there's no trick to it. Take the couplers off, pry and pull, and they'll come up. If you look, they're kind of the doors. They're molded details. They're not very sharp, but that's not too bad. It's single color, and here's the interior. Again, it's sort of big detail, like really low resolution detail, but it's enough, particularly if you start putting people in here. These will look absolutely fine. And the fact that they put multicolors in here, I think is a really nice touch. So the interior of the club car here, and I assume the rest are going to be really similar, it's very good. It's not exquisite, but it's certainly better than average in the fact that they used multiple colors. It looks like this board was originally done in 2005. That probably explains why they're still using the wand, even though it's in my opinion, a pretty antiquated technology at this point. Let's see. Yeah. So let's go on to the next one. Here's the standard sleeper. And again, we do have some hint that there are doorways and openings, but they're just sort of big molded in, really low resolution molded in. No separate door handles or anything like that. So definitely not quite LS models or N27 models, but if you look here, we have enough, I think, to keep people's interests. But I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in a second in terms of one thing I missed. I think they missed the boat on here, but right, there's kind of big details, but they have beds, but they're fine enough to where if you want to put people in there, that's no problem. There is a capacitor. That's probably used to be a battery, but now it's a capacitor, so you won't have light flicker. Very nice touch. And yeah, so I can look up here, I can see the Hall sensors. The next one is the accessible sleeper. So if you can find some figures that are maybe in wheelchairs, something like that, they would fit in there really nicely in terms of the theme. And I'm glad, they made these different. They could have kept them the same as the standard sleeper, but they did not. Same issue here though, sort of really low resolution door moldings. But one thing I noticed is that the lights are only in the hallway side. The lights are not inside of the compartments. So what's going to happen is this car is going to light up on one side, but not the other. And I think they could have made this more interesting by having random lights, depending on which board they were using, light up certain compartments. I think that would have been a lot nicer. And finally, we have the seating car. Again, it's the same thing. It's actually multicolored. I think these are paint. I don't know. Yeah, it looks like they're paint, but again, I will definitely give them credit because of the effort, the fact that they were going to put multicolors. And again, it's kind of low resolution, but it'll be good enough. And we can see here that, there's this open space, but I think most of that's going to be covered by the shell. So there's plenty of space for people if you want to put them in there, and I think it'll look really good, particularly with the lighting, particularly in the seating car and in the club car, but not so much in the sleepers unless you're willing to do a little bit of your own work. Problems out of the box were relatively minimal. Some things like I lost a few of these. I mean, they didn't lose any of them. They just came off, so I'm gonna have to go find the cars they came from. This came off from the end, the diaphragm here, and it won't pop back in. So I think I'm going to have to use some urethane rubber glue to put it back on. That way it won't be super brittle or stiff, but that's okay. But sort of not really entirely sure. It looks almost like a manufacturing defect because it just won't stick in there to begin with. On some of them, these etched plates came up. They lifted like this, a couple on the bottom, a couple on the side. I'm not entirely sure the best way to try to repair these. It'll probably have to be some sort of glue, but that did happen. And oddly, they did forget one set of number boards. The small one on the side there is already pre-attached, but this larger one is not because it shows the destination and they just didn't include it in the box. And I looked like 5 times. So what is good news is the lights save their state. So once you turn them on, they're on until you turn them off. So I'm just going to leave them on forever. And one thing I noticed about them is I think most people will like them. These are actually the dimmest lights that I think I own pre-factory installed, but they also look the most realistic thanks to that. When I do my own lights, I actually like to set them a little bit brighter. In fact, I think a lot of bit brighter, but it looks a little bit unnatural. But because I'm an overgrown raccoon and like shiny things and lights, and it works out well for me. But I think for most of you, particularly who want better prototypicality, these are extremely well lit in terms of their brightness level. And I white balanced this as best I could, so this is about as true as a view as you're going to get on video, I think. It's a very soft, warm light that I think will make your night scenes look great, especially if you put figures in here. And again, these are just simple pry and pull. So just pry them apart. Yeah, take the couplers off, pry apart and pull, and you'll be able to get your figures in there really easily. But one thing I am right about is the fact that one entire side of the sleeper, and I mean every sleeper, isn't lit. To me, that's not very realistic. Some people will be awake, some people will be asleep, and I think this would look a lot nicer if every sleeper car had random rooms lit up. Now, I did have one car that had a capacitor that is out and it's not working. I'm not too worried about this, but I wish they would have caught this in quality control. Just for my own edification, I wanted to find out exactly how long this consist would be in real life. So I measured, and it's about 30 centimeters from the center of the coupler join to the next one. And if we convert that into OO scale, that is 76.2. We will find that each car is 2,286 centimeters in real life times 18 carriages. That gives us 41,148 centimeters in total, which gives us roughly 411 meters, or just slightly over a quarter of a mile. How about that? Now I'm curious to know what this will actually be in HO scale. If it was an HO scale train at this length, again, we take 30 centimeters per each of the cars. The HO conversion factor is 87.1, which gives us 2,613 centimeters times 18 cars. It's going to give us just slightly over 47,000 centimeters, which is 470 meters, which is almost a third of a mile. How about that? All right, enough screwing around. All right, back to these magnetic couplers. I looked at the document they give you in each of the package, and it says that the models are supplied fitted with tension lock couplings. That's what it says, right? But that's not the truth. And it clearly states that the magnetic couplers are for display use or for use on trains of appropriate length. Well, 18 cars, it's going to be very difficult to be appropriately lengthed. Luckily, these come in an NEM pocket, and certainly for the first car, you can't have it magnetic unless they didn't give you an extra one, so you can't put a magnetic coupler onto the locomotive, so you've got to put a tension lock coupler on there. And because my turns can be a little bit tight, I'm going to put a slightly wider one on here. Let's go ahead and see now if this is going to pull 18 carriages with these magnetic couplers. Let's do it. Nope, ain't gonna do it. Broke right after the second one. Well, let's give her a shot again and see what we can come up with. Got a feeling that no matter how many times we try to do this, we are not going to find a lot of success, but you never know. Maybe we can start this thing out slow enough to where these things won't break. We just crawl it forward. Maybe we can get enough momentum going in the entire consist to allow it to come through. Let's see. Nope. Broke again. Shouldn't be surprised. Well, I'm not surprised, actually. Let's see if I can do it. Let's see if I can just do it as a human being. And I have the power. Nope. I don't have the power. I don't think anyone has the power. These magnets certainly don't have the power. Isn't going to work. Okay. In order to make your life easier, I'm going to go ahead and try a bunch of different couplers for you, and you can see which ones will work best for you. And the first that we're going to start off with are the included couplers. Here they go. We'll place these together. Nice positive click. And you can see the gap there is pretty minimal. I mean, it's about a 0.5 millimeter nominal, and then about 1 on the pole, something like that. These hold together very, very closely, no doubt. Next up, we have the Hornby style tension lock couplers, and in all seriousness, does anyone like these things? I really want to know, but look at the gap in there. It's pretty massive, and I'm serious. If you love them, that's great, but is this really a modern coupler that anyone should be using? Well, you can see how it holds them together. Pretty large gap. Up next is your basic European style flip latch coupler. Let's go ahead and put these together. Whoops, they're a little bit offset, which is not. There we go. All right, just about as bad, although not quite as bad as the tension lock, but they'll certainly hold together. So you can decide if you've got a bunch of those lying around like I do, you could use them, I suppose. Next up is the Markland Trix flip latch style close coupling. Let's put those together. Pretty nice. Looks like nominal, almost no gap, and then on the pole about 1 millimeter. So those so far are the best of the bunch. And of course, I think these are pretty secure overall. And last but not least, we have the Roll-Tru coupler and the Fleischmann Profi coupler, and these coupled exactly the same, so I'm not going to do both, but here we go. Pretty much about the same, let's see, maybe slightly further apart than the Markland Tricks flip latch, but on the pole it'll be about 1 millimeter, and I think I'm going to use the Roll-Tru ones. I have a lot of those sitting around. I normally use Fleischmann, but I'm kind of out of those right now. One thing you may be asking is, can you pull all 18 cars with the coupler that's included with the locomotive? Because the coupler fits very loosely. Very, very loosely. And I think this is a bit of a design flaw on their part. I don't know what happened, but it goes in there, but it doesn't have a particularly positive click. And it's really, really easy to come out. Well, actually what happened is I actually pulled all these with this one and it never came out, but what's strange is when it was just sitting there, it dropped out on its own. So if that's the issue, is its sort of vertical stability, I'm going a little bit against sort of what my brain is telling me to do here, and I'm going to just use some flexible 6000 glue and just put a tiny dab on there. And I really don't like gluing things necessarily, but I think this will stop it from falling down. Like I said, it really wasn't a problem, but I don't want it to be a problem in the future on its own either. So by just using this really non-destructive, flexible glue, I think it'll hold the coupler in the up position, and that way it'll have a lot to grab on. So it was my solution. Maybe somebody else. Someone mentioned they were able to kind of pry the plastic, but I don't want to stress the plastic, and they basically said they could kind of pry them apart and it would click into place better. Maybe so, but I just don't want to take that chance. So this seems to work pretty good. All right, what a lot of you probably want to know is, will one locomotive pull the entire consist of 18 cars? And the answer is, yeah, it will, but it doesn't completely like it. But it actually can. So we'll go ahead and start mine up and let it pull. And since this is almost a third, actually with the locomotive, it's about 1/3 of a mile long. It in HO scale. It is sitting around my curve because I only have about 1/5 of a mile straights. So as you saw, it slipped and slid and struggled, but eventually did get this consist moving. And since these cars are somewhat heavy, they have momentum. And so momentum's your friend here. And I like to run this train set at full speed, at least with one locomotive, because it keeps going and it doesn't slow down. Whereas if I get it any slower, it'll start choking up in the curves. Speaking of curve, I'll give it a little bit tougher test and get it to actually start right on the curve, and we'll see if it works or not. So yep, it'll get it going. It doesn't like it a whole lot, and I would recommend double heading. It's putting a lot of stress on the motor. I can actually kind of hear it straining to some extent. But yeah, if you just have one locomotive and you want to pull 18 cars, it will do it. I have a perfectly level track. At least I'm not going to try to run this on my hill, so you have to let me know your experience there. This is a beautiful consist, and I think Accurascale did a wonderful job capturing what this must look like in life. I think in real life I'd look at it and be in awe, and I'm in awe just looking at these. Details are wonderful. It has some of the best undercarriage details of any single model I have. If we're talking about the parts that I can see, not so worried about what's on the bottom. The choice to use bearing to axles was one of the best choices they could have made, and I wish more manufacturers would use those in their passenger cars in particular. I'll have some cars actually coming up in the next month where they're wonderful cars, but they have so much rolling resistance because they used leaf-style pickups. Yeah, so they made a great choice here. Although it may sound a little strange, actually the thick, chunky plastic they use on these sounds wonderful. And although I'm not a big fan of their details, This reminds me of some of the older Athearn corrugated cars, which also use that thick plastic, and they just sound great rolling down the track. I think the included lights are the best I have of any passenger car, and that's saying quite a bit because I have quite a few of them. I think the brightness is just right, although if I do them, I make them brighter. I think for most people, they'll find them just right, and the warmth of the lights really simulates what I see out in the real world. Great job. Making these a simple pry and pull to get the shell off is a great idea. I think a lot of people are going to want to put figures in these. I want to put figures in these, and not having to screw around with goofy clips or a lot of small screws. That's a really good idea for the end consumer. Great job there too. In terms of improvement potential, there is some, no doubt about it. And the first thing I can see is I think they need to work on their quality control a little bit. Again, I had a capacitor that was bad. I had some pieces that were starting to bend and warp. Also, I was missing one of those destination boards, and I had to write them, and they haven't written me back about it, so hopefully they will soon, and they'll send me the boards. The next area is I find the coupler choice confusing. Even the manual confused me. Why do you say you include one set of couplers but then include another? But the couplers you include aren't particularly good for the number of cars that come with this set. So I'm not really sure I totally understand what's going on there. Although a good idea in theory, ditch the wand. In fact, all of these, I think, because of their QC process, had their end of train marker lights on, and I didn't bother to go turn them off. I would have left them on anyway, but it's just such a hassle to try to go through the wand, try to find the correct place, wave it. Hope I got it. It just wasn't worth it. Get rid of the wand, go to dip switches or DCC, combination of both. The next thing is light some rooms up. Without doing that, it makes it so that one side of the entire train is dark except for the club cars and the seating cars. It's not how it'll look in real life. Some people will be up, if you're like me, will be up till like 3, 4 a.m. And I think it'll just look more realistic. And I won't have to purposely figure out which way to orient all the cars so that I have basically lights evenly across the entire consist. In the last areas, I think the interiors are a little bit low resolution. I think they could do a better job on those. If you own these, I'll have no doubt that you'll be happy with them. They're some of the nicest passenger cars that I own, and I will really enjoy running these for all time in the future. They're exactly what I'm looking for, particularly in terms of their look and the way they sound going down the track. I know that might sound very weird, but at least for me, and I know for a lot of people, there's a very holistic experience in watching and listening to your trains running down the track, and these sound great. They remind me a lot of ways in the Bachmann Midland that I had that also uses this really thick plastic, and because of that, it sounds really good rolling down the rails. It's important to consider the costs in these either. These actually aren't very expensive for what they are, and that's partly why I ordered all 18, is I figured if I had to cut some out of the train, then that's what I would do, and it wouldn't be a huge loss, and I could pick up, like I said, another locomotive at another time. But I don't think I'll do that. I think I'm going to go ahead and buy another Class 92 in double head. I love watching all 18 of these run by, and I just can't imagine cutting this up. I think it's awesome at this length. All right, well, I hope this helped you out. If it did, I'd appreciate it if you would like, comment, and subscribe. Those things help me out a lot, and they don't even cost you anything. How about that? So until next time, take care, stay safe, happy model railroading, and I will go ahead and also give you a running session here if you want to hang around for a minute. So talk to you later. Bye for now.